Okay, so I think what we'll do is we'll get things started in the interest of time. One of the things I just wanted to share with everybody is at Salesforce, we are a very value-based culture. And one of the things that we always do, which is our tradition, is we begin every presentation with a warm thank you. And so that's how I'd like to start. First of all, thank you so much to the organizers. Thank you so much for inviting me. And thank you for everybody here for taking the time to come. It's a topic that's very close to us, and it's something that is inciting a lot of debate. So I'd love to have a bit of interaction as I'm talking. Does that sound good, guys? Yes? Come on. Yes? Yes. There you go. Okay. So, the titles are always fancy, so hence this title as well. But let's get started with the basic topic. By the way, those of you who have interacted with Salesforce so far, how many people are familiar with Salesforce? Okay. Have you gone to the website? Were you guys puzzled how all these cartoon characters are there? Right? I was. Before I joined, I was researching, and I'm like, what the heck? This looks more like a Disney company than a serious enterprise company. But actually, there's a big reason behind it, right? Because life and the journey to professional growth is kind of like a trail. You're traversing the trail, it's a jungle out there. Lots of things happening. So you want to be able to traverse it with some help, and we are that help, right? In fact, we have a big education program called Trailhead. Have anybody here tried Trailhead courses? Yeah, it's free for everybody. You can learn anything to do with Salesforce. In fact, it's now available in more than 1,000 colleges. So Trailhead, it's all about, again, going trekking, going through the jungle. Our cartoon characters are there. And this particular cartoon character is Einstein. And Einstein symbolizes intellect. So I'll talk a little bit more about him later. But a question I'd like to pose to people is about innovation. Now, everybody will roll their eyes whenever they see innovation because all companies have some innovation program or the other. Am I correct? But I'd just like to hear your point of view as to what is innovation in your mind. So somebody here volunteer? When I say innovation, what comes to mind? What is innovation? Okay, I used to teach in college, so I'm going to start pointing fingers. Okay. Anybody volunteer? Any raised hands? Yes. Thinking about the future? Excellent. Yeah. Please. Something new that's helpful? Absolutely, yeah. Invention and commercialization. Kind of like a tree falls in the forest, right? Unless you have somebody. Awesome. Anybody here? So, yeah, please. Bridging the gap. Excellent. Excellent. And fundamentally, when you're thinking of innovation, does it have to be something completely groundbreaking? Yeah? Much better and faster, right? Exactly. So, when we think of innovation, you ask the average person, they think of some earth-shattering thing, right? Let's do something that's going to change the world. Everybody starts thinking around that. But fundamental to having a culture of innovation, fundamental to thinking about innovation, is the fact that almost any incremental change is also innovation. It's bridging the gap, like you said, right? So suppose, for example, you drink coffee in your right hand because you're doing something with your left hand, but then one day you decide, hey, let me switch and use my left hand to drink coffee, right? And right hand, then I can do some texting. That's innovation too, if it helps you. So we have to open up our minds and think about innovation very, very differently. Okay, it's a small point I just wanted to make. So with that, let's get into a couple of interesting examples of innovation that I've noticed. So first a question, who's this guy? Somebody here? Michael Jordan. Okay? Yeah, don't be. Yes. That's it. Why is he famous? Yes? Absolutely. Are you from the US? Okay, I could tell. So yes, absolutely. Very, very famous person. And like you said, famous for basketball, famous for Chicago Bulls, famous for the Nike deal. And so when Nike was starting out, they started off as a running shoe company. Okay, anybody here read Shoe Dog? Right? Amazing book, one of my favorite business books that reads like a novel. So when they were starting out, they were a running company. Okay? and they had the waffle sole that they were using to be able to get the grip. And they partnered with a company that's now become very famous for fashion shoes called Onitsuka. So they were doing that, but the real money was somewhere else. The real money was in basketball, because basketball shoes were used not just for basketball, but they were a big fashion statement, right? And a lot of the rap music folks were using basketball shoes in their concerts, etc. It became very popular. So they're like, how do we break into this? But they were a relatively smaller company than an Adidas or a Puma or something else, or Converse. So they're like, well, let's try to see who we can get. And there's a movie made about that recently called Air. Anybody seen Air? Awesome movie, right? So they said, okay, let's bet the farm on this new kid in North Carolina who's coming up. He's absolutely amazing. Let's see what we can do. But our man, Michael Jordan, was not interested at all. He's like, I want to go with one of the big boys. And they laid out the red carpet. But these guys were incredibly innovative in how they approached the whole thing. Okay? What they did was, they said, look, it's not about the shoe. It's about you. So we will create a shoe around you. Okay? It'll be specifically made to what Michael Jordan represents to the industry. And the industry being the basketball industry. So they created that, and the shoe that he's wearing here was the Air Jordan. That's what they came up with. And another really innovative thing they did was, actually two things they did for marketing. One was that it was disallowed in the NBA to wear shoes that had more than a certain amount of color in it. It had to be mostly white. And if you wore those kind of shoes, you were penalized. $5,000 per game. So what did they do? They said, okay, every game we'll pay the penalty, $5,000. You just wear these shoes. Super innovative. And then the other thing, upon negotiating with his mother primarily, they decided they're going to give him a cut of the revenues. Today, Air Jordans are huge. It has made Nike what it is today, and it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. He's retired for a long time, but it's still making tons and tons of money for him and for Nike. Amazing innovation. Okay? Something else I'll touch upon, and again, I'm trying to come up with examples which are kind of, tech, kind of business, etc. So the next one I'll talk about is this. Okay? Anybody encountered these things? In the old days, when you were going around, you had these maps and there was a trick to folding them in the right way, otherwise they would get all screwed up, right? So maps were how you got around. People today don't even think about these things, it's cumbersome, okay? But this was very much a reality, kind of a pain point that people thought, hey, we need to get resolved. In fact, in the US, I don't know, when you were in the US, were you a member of AAA? Right? So AAA is the Automobile Association of America. You become a member, you get free towing and all of those things, but the old days, you used to get these things. They're called triptychs. So if you wanted to go from point A to point B, they quickly went and collected these things, put them in a little binder, and you could just scroll through them as you were driving. Very innovative. And the form factor was almost like a mobile. Okay, so very interesting, but still cumbersome. And then at some point in time, Yahoo came up with maps that you could look at, on your PC. And there was another company called Where2. Anybody heard of Where2? Anybody here at all? No? All of you use Where2. Where2 was a company that came up with these maps on the desktop. Okay? And people started taking a look at it, what's happening, etc. And then a small company called Google decided, hey, let's buy this thing. So they bought Where2, they started looking at the technology, and they decided, well, we need to enable that on the mobile. And that was the big breakthrough. So they did exactly that. They enabled it on the mobile, and then they had multiple iterations of functionality that they kept on adding to it. Okay? To this day, when none of us would venture out without Google Maps. You go to any city in India. I was just in Udaipur like 4 days ago. And there also people use Google Maps. Oh man, there's congestion here, etc. So again, amazing innovation in business through acquisition, innovation in business through understanding what might be needed, and of course through technology. We being able to consolidate information from all the cell phones to give you traffic information, right? So these are the kind of things to begin thinking about when you think of innovation. Now, of course, let's talk about an innovation that happened a long time back. Mr. Graham Bell came up with the telephone. It took 75 years to get to 100 million users for the telephone. Okay? That's a long time, but it happened. What was the next iteration of something like this? The place where you use Google Maps, which was the mobile phone. So it took 16 years to get to 100 million users, right? This is how you get truly, viral. Everybody starts using it, right? You can do amazing things on the platform there. And then came something called the internet and social media. And social media, it took only 2.5 years to get to 100 million users through the various things that were there, Orkut, this, that, whatever. And most recently, there was another phenomenon that's gotten to more than 100 million. Can anybody tell me what it is? ChatGPT, right? So that took only 2 months. Plus, it was not just ChatGPT, it's many LLMs that have been around that have become incredibly popular. People on the creative bent use these LLMs in some fashion or the other to be able to generate images, create poetry, write your resume, write a letter to your boss, whatever it is, right? Absolutely amazing. Great stuff. Again, amazing technology, but what do you do with it? Can you create images like this at work and be able to use that to get a promotion? Most likely not, right? But it's really good stuff, something to be leveraged. And plus, when you take a look at decision makers in companies, they also see the same things we see, right? They see these technologies and they're like, why aren't we using that to become an even bigger player in the market? We really need to be able to leverage it. Things like, okay, we have all these customers globally, why can't we give them amazing experiences? Easier said than done, okay? So there's a question of expectations that these decision makers have, and then there's a reality of the products that are available. And there's a big chasm in the middle that needs to be bridged. And like the lady had said, innovation is all about bridging, right? Creating those bridges between the need and what is available. So that's where a lot of these things come in. So fundamentally, what do we do? What do we do to make generative AI something that people can truly use, right? That's the big conundrum. We need to be able to use it in an appropriate context. And this is where companies like Salesforce come in. We have been in the AI business for approximately 10 years or so. Did people know that? Most people were not there just like you, right? Exactly. People are like, wait, is that really the case? But who has used the Sales Cloud? Anybody here? Use the Sales Cloud, right? So when you use the Sales Cloud and you're doing something, they come up with some predictions, right? Those predictions are leveraging data to give you an insight into what might happen, okay? So that's predictive AI. And we've been doing that and incrementally making improvements for quite some time now. In fact, the number of predictions we have per week has gone to 1 trillion. Incredibly huge, all built in-house. Okay? And we've had a dedicated AI team for quite some time. In fact, that's how Mr. Einstein came about to be one of our mascots. He represents analytics, he represents AI for us. And something, don't quote me on this, but this whole concept of prompts, prompt engineering, everybody's heard of it? That was a concept conceived within Salesforce. So, but that still brings us to the issue, how do you make this something that's consumable? So predictive AI you've seen now, right? I've given you an example. But what do you do with generative? So there are many things you can do, but fundamental to anything you do, which is going to help you create analytics, create predictions, etc., fundamental to that is data. Now, data management has been around for a very long time. I started my career off designing database management systems. Okay? So it's been around for a while, something tried and trusted, people know. You've got data, that's the new oil, everybody talks about it, and that data is put into all different kinds of databases. If it's a relational database, well, you know how things are stored, it's rows and columns, etc. And when you have data there, you know where it resides. Okay, you can spread it out, you can have a RAID thing, you can have distributed data, but you know fundamentally that data is somewhere. And how to control it, right? You can have various levels of locking. Most people are familiar with that, right? So you're able to lock, you're able to control who gets access to it, you're able to see that, you're able to control what someone sees in what fashion. All of that is in your control. What does that result? That results in confidence, right? So whatever data is going out, you have control over it. You know who's accessing it and when, okay? So that is a very powerful thing. Now what's happening, where does data reside now? Can anybody say? What happens to data nowadays? We still have databases, but what's the future? Cloud. But you have databases in the cloud. Where is data nowadays? It's on the edge, but how? So what happens is, again, data is coming in, right? People need to do something with the data. Now all this buzz is there about LLMs. What the heck do we do? How do we do it? All the AI companies, every company has .ai, by the way, nowadays, after the name, right? So what do we do with this data? We have to leverage it to be able to do certain things. Have people heard of this guy named Pavlov? No? What did Pavlov do? Yes. Exactly. It's called classical conditioning, right? So what did Pavlov do? He trained dogs so that whenever he rang a bell, they started salivating. Okay? So this action-reaction. Very similar to that, this is how all these LLMs are trained. They're training data and their expected results, and when they match, all of a sudden, the LLMs figure out what to do. Okay? So data today is residing, of course databases are around, but more and more it's residing in these kind of things, these networks. Okay? They started off as neural networks, that's what they were called. And the way it works is you train them. You have input going in, you have output that's expected, and somehow there is weights, etc. that's changed within, so that now all of a sudden, these guys are able to identify things. It originally started off with pattern matching. I'm an ex-AI guy, right? So that's how it started off. But nobody knows how it's stored. So data is not stored as data. Data is stored as some kind of an intelligence. Very similar to how you think, right? For example, you were mentioning the edge, but if I asked you, as a human, to think about a monkey, you can think about a monkey? But if I asked you, where is it stored in your brain? You have no clue, right? And in addition to thinking about a monkey, you have feelings about a monkey. Maybe you're scared of them, right? If I ask you to think about a monkey wearing a top hat, you could do that, right? But you don't know how it happens. Very similarly here. So we have all these predictions coming in, and all these generative AI results coming in, but nobody knows where they are. So that's a big conundrum, okay? How do you actually manage these things? And what happens with that is people are using it for all kinds of stuff, sentiment analysis, creating this, creating that. People are excited, all CEOs, like, they call the CTO in and say, hey, get me that. At the same time, they're like, we need to have control over this. How do you do it? A couple of months ago, there was a big story about a very famous tech company, I won't name it, where the engineers were taking the code they were developing and putting it into one of the AI LLMs to just get it checked. Is it good? Is it well formed? You guys remember that? And that particular company had a big scare because they're like, this is proprietary information. Now it's getting out there. And because you don't know how it's stored, all of a sudden anybody trying to do something similar will be able to leverage stuff that's been developed by that company. Okay? That's the big thing, and it's a very real problem. So you don't have control over your data anymore. You don't know where the data is. I'll tell you in the break as to what that company was. I know you got here wondering about that. So, okay, so now let's see how we're able to leverage things like LLMs, right? Prompt engineering, that's a big buzzword now. Everybody's creating prompts. So if you have a prompt like this, where you say, hey, generate an email to a client to discuss XYZ. You do that, and the outcome is something quite amazing. All of a sudden, there are many paragraphs, you can just cut and paste and send it. But if you take a look at this, guys, what comes to mind? Is this something you can use in business right away? Look at the blue part. Why not? Okay. Yeah, true. What else? It's generic, right? It's not personalized. You have all this hi-fi technology and yet you're sending something that looks like it used to be called a form letter, right? So that's what it is. So not something very useful. So what do you do to fix something like this in Gen AI? Improve the prompt, right? Which means you keep on adding information. Absolutely. So now let's do that, okay? So you have this that you are asking, and then you're like, well, let me give more information to the LLM, okay? So let's add something more. And then you add something more. right? And then you add something more, and then you add something more, and then out pops something that looks personalized. It's nice. Is this good? Exciting? Everybody can do it? What's the problem with it? The prompt's longer than the output. Anybody else? Come in? A lot of data you have to feed in, right? Yeah? You're getting to my next slide. Smart guy. Yeah, so all of those things, right? If the prompt is so bloody huge, oh, you can't hear what he said? Okay, that's good, because otherwise he was cutting into what I was going to say, but he knows it, right? So the whole concept here is, if the bloody prompt is so big, might as well write the email yourself. Why am I doing this? The other problem with this is, there is PII information, okay? So you send this information out to the LLM, God knows what will happen with it. Again, remember, the whole concept of where is it stored, how will it be used? You don't want somebody else doing a query and your customer's data is coming in the thing that's composed, right? So those are the two things, okay? One is, there's a lot of sensitive data in there, and the other part is, it's not really productive. If you're going to write such a big prompt yourself, might as well write the whole bloody email, okay? It doesn't save you much time. That's the fundamental thing that the CEOs want, is save time, increase efficiency, see what we can do. So what do we do about it? Any thoughts? What's the first thing that comes to mind? Come again? You have templates, sure, but that's how these guys generate. But yeah, good one. Anybody else? Yeah? Anonymize the data. Okay, good. More reliable place to store the data. That you already have, right? You have the data somewhere, and yeah, correct. Anybody else? Yeah? So, okay, so that addresses part 2 of the productivity part, right? But the first part, you are absolutely right, man. So you've got this prompt, and there are certain pieces of information here. Let's just pick 2, the PII stuff, personally identifiable information, and let's take that and mask it or obfuscate it. So it never enters into any kind of a database, okay? But the other part also is, we are sending this still might have information that's stored in LLMs. So the other part is, you need to work with all these companies that are delivering these fancy LLMs for you to be able to do all this stuff, and ensure that your data is never stored there. Once it's stored, it's lost. You don't know what to do with it. So that's the other part, is work on zero retention. So Salesforce has worked on both of these things so that your company's data is not shared with anybody. Okay? I'll get a little bit more into that, right? So fundamentally what happens is, we have this thing called the trust layer. Okay? And how does this work? You have your company data, like you were saying. You guys couldn't hear him, but that's what he was talking about. You've got your company data, and being a CRM company, we have data, or actually your data resides with us, all about your customers. You have all kinds of information. What was the last purchase made? Where is the customer? What are the main problems? When's the last service call? All of that is available to you. It's right there. You have that. You want to be able to use that to generate interesting prompts, rather than have the Salesforce administrator or developer generate those prompts. We do that for you. We take that out there. We obfuscate the data. We mask the data. We do something called grounding. Have people heard of grounding? Grounding is basically setting the context. You know, all the 20 lines that were there in the previous example, all of that is done for you. You set the context, okay? So you have the secure data in the form of obfuscation, you have grounding, you have masking, and then you're able to send things out. You take a look at the information coming back. Is there any toxicity to it? Is there any hallucinations happening? That's a big buzzword now, hallucinations. And then making sure it doesn't get stored. This is our trust layer. Okay? We can make use of any LLM. We have our own. We can make use of anyone, OpenAI, whatever it's called. But fundamentally, your data is secure. That is the most important thing for any company. And with that, you're able to do amazing things. Is that fairly clear? Okay. And the other part is enabling this in a seamless manner. So what we do, and I'll show you an example of this, what we do is, when you're using the Sales Cloud and you're about to say, you want to create a marketing campaign of some kind. There's a button there saying, hey, have Einstein GPT do something. You click it, and it does it for you. So I'll show you a few examples of that, but fundamental is, it's all done within context. Our role here is not to have AI, Gen AI be buzzwords, something cute that we're just offering. It is provided in the context of the products we're having in a way that's useful to the people who are using the products. Not as a side thing. It's all embedded. You don't even realize you're using this. That's when the true value comes in. Okay? So do take a look at this video. So fundamentally, all of these things that you saw are available in our products, either already or within like a few weeks, right? We're making announcements almost every week. Each of our products is now GPTized. You can do all of these things, but you don't need to really know GPT. You just need to know how to click a button. Okay? So if you're creating a marketing campaign, you want to be able to create personalized stuff, it's very easy. On the average, you know, your person might take, I don't know, 3-4 hours to be able to generate a campaign. With this, it's like 5 to 10 minutes. And if you're doing multiple of those every week, the time saving is enormous. Being able to generate a flow, that part you said, you know, the automation part, that's called the flow within Salesforce. So you're able to create these process flows at a click of a button. All of that is available now. And that is the true use of a fascinating technology, like all of this, you know, GPT-isms, right? You are providing it the way people want to use it, not the way, you know, people try things out in like a, you know, early beta version. That's our goal with this. Now, something else I'll add, have people heard about the concept of a trailblazer? So a trailblazer is anybody who has anything to do with Salesforce, okay? Again, going with the jungle theme, these people are out there blazing the trail, right? So these trailblazers are the ones who are making use of the products we have and enabling companies to become very AIs, right? And the cute part is in trailblazer, AI is like the, you know, third and fourth letter. So, and these trailblazers are everywhere. There was a consulting company named IDC saying by 2026, I think they made this announcement 2-3 years ago, Salesforce technologies and related you know, ecosystem is going to generate 9.3 million jobs globally. Okay? 1.3 trillion in additional revenues for all the people associated with it. In fact, one interesting point I'll just share with you guys is, for every dollar that Salesforce makes, our partners in the ecosystem make 6. So the economy is very, very strong, and it's enabled by trailblazers. And now the future of how people think about Salesforce is, we have AI, all of us are now thinking about AI, we have data, and we are known as a CRM company. We have many more products in CRM, by the way. But AI plus data plus CRM results in amazing magic for everybody. But of course, when we say CRM, we mean what's called the customer 360. We have products for any company to be able to do anything with your customer, whether it be initial marketing, sales, servicing, analytics, you name it, we've got it. Right? A big thing with data is integration. We have data. Most companies have hundreds of enterprise applications within their company. How do you bring the data together into one place? The big buzzword nowadays is data cloud, data lakes, or whatever you might want to call it, right? And we have a tool called MuleSoft, which integrates all this data, brings it to a central place, and you can do, again, magic with it. Now with that, what we'd like to talk about is something that I'm incredibly passionate about, hence the t-shirt, our booth is out there, is the Salesforce Startup Program. That's something that I conceived and we launched it about a year and a half ago or so. And it's done really well. We have more than 170 startups. And our goal with that is to enable startups to do amazing things. Every startup wants to innovate. Every startup wants to be able to do great things. But there's a support structure needed for it. You need platforms to develop upon. You need the ability to get out there in the market. You need the ability to be able to connect with other startups and brainstorm, or connect with mentors, connect with people with money, right? All of those things are there. So our goal is to be able to enable that and do amazing things with the startups. So this is what the program is. You see the wheel here. This wheel represents all the stuff that we like to provide for the startups. Okay? And a bunch of this stuff was already there when I joined. I joined about 2.5 years ago. It was there. But each of those entities was trying to approach the startups independently. So it's a very fragmented approach to the startup ecosystem. What we have done is we have created kind of like a conduit. You come to us, we connect you to whoever within Salesforce that can help you. In fact, most recently, there's a new product that we've launched called Salesforce Starter. Anybody heard of Salesforce Starter? So Salesforce regularly, enterprise-grade products, big things, it takes you some time to implement. Salesforce Starter is a very easy to use, quick start package. It has the sales, service, and marketing cloud, and within 5-10 minutes you can get going. Okay? So that's what we're also providing to the startups, to be able to do what they do. Most people have a big hang-up. Will I be able to use it? Do I have the manpower? Do I have the wherewithal to be able to do stuff? Starter is your solution. You'll be able to leverage it and get going really fast. Our big thing is make use of all these digital tools that are available so your company runs much, much better and efficiently. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. Right? Most people are still using Excel sheets or whatnot to keep track of customers and interact with them. Leads to a lot of mess. Tools are available, man. Use it. And now these tools are GPTIs. That's a fundamental message. We have a booth there. You guys should stop by. And with that, I'm done. Thank you so much. If there are any 1 or 2 questions, happy to take them. Do we have time for a couple of questions? Anybody have a question? Are we good? But I asked too many in the middle, so people are like, we've had enough. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. I'll be around for a few minutes afterwards.
It's like we have one question.
Thank you. Oh, there was a question, is it? Yeah.
In terms of Gen AI, internally, what are the kind of some applications or use cases you guys are excited about going forward?
For Gen AI?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I was mentioning. So, one example was if you are about to start a marketing campaign, right? It takes a while. How do you actually put all the things together? What are the various aspects of your company that need to be incorporated? Now all of that is available at a click of a button. Earlier, before, there was no button to click. Well, there was a button to click at the end when you were launching it. But before that, you had to go to your design department and do this and talk to the data modeler, etc. Everything's available. So fundamentally, we know the context your company is running in because you're using our products. Leveraging that to do the grounding, to leverage the LLMs, we are able to generate magic for you in every product of ours. Yeah.
Just to add on to that question, one is customers who are already using the product.
Yeah.
For a startup community, would you be opening up your SDKs, APIs so that we can build further on those GPTs?
Absolutely, that's a great question. Absolutely, that's the idea behind the startup program. Okay, so one of the things that fascinated me about Salesforce before I joined also, and was very exciting for me, is Salesforce is not just products. These are platforms. And you can develop low-code or pro-code programs on top of it very easily. Okay. In addition to that, we have enterprise-grade application stores. It's called App Exchange. A cute fact is the App Store in Apple, the name came from Salesforce. So Mark Benioff met Steve Jobs, and they were talking. He's like, hey, why don't you just use this name? We'll call ours something else. So our App Store is App Exchange. When you develop on our platform, we help guide you on how to do that. We review it because most of these are SaaS applications, right? And you can put things up there and it gets worldwide. So exactly, that's the fundamental idea. Anybody else? Yeah, okay.
So is this, Einstein GPT thing is only for marketers or it's for everyone?
Any product of ours that you use will have GPT built in.
Okay. Do you think Einstein GPT will kill prompt engineering?
No, well, see, it all depends on how you look at it. There's no killing part. So I'm glad you asked this question, okay? Because one of the first things that happen with any new technology is people are scared. When the calculator first came, people are like, oh man, that's the death of accountants, right? Every new technology that comes in, there's all these doomsday predictions. No, all this does is it creates interesting avenues for people to pursue as they go along. All of us change, right? When the mobile phone came, right, the manufacturers of the old phone, they had to switch. So you have to do some of these things, right? Prompt engineering is still there because what do we use underneath the covers? Prompt engineering. That's what we're doing. We're just making it easier for the users of our software to not have to do it themselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So Einstein GPT, is it able to write the same email you wrote with that big prompt?
Yeah, it's able to do all of this stuff. Whatever I showed you is from our products.
Okay. Great.
Yep,
Thank you.
of course. Yeah.
Where is Salesforce at with respect to foundation models? Will you be enabling the users to create foundation models?
Foundation models, can you be more specific? Can you unpack that a little bit for me?
I think foundation models are very basic models from which you can create any kind of LLM,
Yeah.
and they cover lots of. It's like a superset of LLMs.
So we are not a company that's focusing on enabling people to create their own LLMs, right? We have our own, we leverage the ones in the industry, and so you can do plug and play, and we'll be able to use it in a trusted manner. That's what we're all about. Otherwise, there are plenty of companies you can leverage to be able to create your own, right?
Okay, thank you.
Does Einstein GPT here?
Okay,
Does
yeah, sorry, it's
Einstein
blinding.
GPT take voice-enabled prompt instruction?
That's a good question. I actually don't know the answer to that. It's not complicated to do because transcription is there, and I've seen demos of it. But is it going to be in the upcoming products? I'll have to check up on that. But I've definitely seen demos of that. Let's just put it that way.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think my time's up, guys. Thank you so much. Okay, one last one. Fine. Yep. Yeah.
Is there some, the topic you started was with innovation. I see it looks like a sports shoe sole, but the hood looks like a dress shoe or almost like a tuxedo shoe.
Yeah.
How comfortable are they?
Incredibly
What's the
comfortable.
innovation there?
Incredibly comfortable, and these are actually onitsukas. So that's why I wore them today. I was in Japan a couple of weeks ago, and I went to the onitsuka store, and I'm like, wow, they have formal shoes with a twist. So I got one. But thank you. They're very comfortable. Thank you so much, guys. Truly appreciate it. But before we go, I have a tradition. Those of you who heard me speak, I like to make a selfie from here. Is that okay? For that, I just like to request people just raise your hands and go nuts when I do it. Sounds good? Okay. All right. Ready? One. Hold on. I need to see up. There you go. 1, 2, 3. Yeah! Oh, come on, guys. Make some noise. 1, 2, 3. Yeah! Awesome. Thank you.